You're watching the England squad announcement special here on Sky Sports News. We welcome our viewers on our YouTube channel. Let's talk about defenders now, and we'll start off by talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold. Let's remind ourselves of what Gareth Southgate said when he was left out of the squad back in March.
There's some areas of the pitch where we've got incredible competition for places, and Trent's very unfortunate. I don't think he's played at the level that he found in the last couple of years, but I think he's getting very close to that now. I think in the last few weeks he's definitely taken steps in the right direction. It's simply that we think, Reece James, Kieran Trippier have had exceptional seasons really with their clubs. Kyle Walker is in a great form with Manchester City. So, we've got other players in the league who are also playing well in that position. Cash at Aston Villa, Ayling at Leeds. So it really is a position. We've got two very good right backs in the under-21s. It's a remarkable position of strength. What I said to Trent earlier today, I've made that same call to Kyle and to Kieran in the past, and their response was a good one, and they took up the challenge and they found themselves back in the squad. And Trent is, of course, a super talent, and he'll, I'm certain, play a big part with England in the future. He misses out this time, but we could quite conceivably be sitting here before the summer and he's with us.
So that was Gareth Southgate there talking back in March when Trent Alexander-Arnold didn't make the last England squad. Right back's your specialist subject, Danny.
Some would argue against that.
and centre-backs for Matt Upson. Talking about Alexander-Arnold, the final few weeks of the season, he's got a lot of praise. Danny, do you think that just nudges him into the squad? And I mean the final 26 as opposed to the larger squad today.
I still think it's in the balance. I think it's very, very difficult at the moment. I think Kyle Walker's the number one right back at the moment. When you're listening to Gareth and what's happened previously, I think he's in fantastic form. He's experienced. The defence has been a bit shaky for England. That's been the problem area. So I think Kyle Walker's the number one. He seems to like Reece James with his athleticism. Obviously, probably going to play in a Champions League final as well, doing incredibly well at the moment. Kieran Trippier has just won La Liga and has been involved in one of the best defensive coaching setups on the planet. He's also very, very experienced. He has fantastic set-piece delivery. Trent has improved and had a good finish to the season.
You're not making your life easier.
No. I think it's a little bit of a toss-up between Trippier and Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think, to who makes the 26-man squad. Because Walker's going to play. Then you need, obviously, a backup or something different. Is Reece James can play the wing-back position, has even played in a 3 at Chelsea of late. And when you're going deeper into
You're taking 3 then?
Well, yeah,
or 2.
Because when you go deeper into the tournament, you're thinking, right, you're playing against the best. You need to be defensively very, very sound. And England's defence isn't the greatest. You don't have 2 fantastic centre-halves where you can say, right, OK, we can have a little bit of licence with the full-backs. You need that position to be really solid. And I'm not quite sure if Trent has still lived up to that defensive position and responsibility in the highest profile games this season. He's an outstanding talent, I get that. But Trippier, defensively, if you were going to come up against it in a semi-final and you're thinking, well, we might have to keep a clean sheet to win this game, do you play Trent Alexander-Arnold or do you throw Trippier in?
Do you think the variety of formation that they might want to play might have a big say on this? In terms, you mentioned about the responsibility defensively, but if there are going to be several games or a couple of games where we may play a back 3, does Alexander-Arnold not then creep up the pecking order just because of his delivery, his ability to go forward and cross the ball?
I still think you've got James in there. You've got Trippier that's played wing-back before. Gareth changed the system to accommodate Walker and Trippier in the last World Cup, and it worked very, very well. Walker playing as the right side of a 3. Trippier's also played that position now at Atletico Madrid. 42 games he's played this season, and it was a big chunk of the season where he's out suspended. He couldn't play. He would have played in a lot more than that. So he's fit, he's fresh, and he's just beaten Barcelona and Real Madrid, to La Liga. He's in great form as well. It's a really difficult decision. I think it depends on whether you're going, as Matt says, for like replacement, or whether you're looking at different options.
One of the reasons, Matt, that he he's likely to go for 3 right-backs, is like you said, because Walker might play the right of a back 3, and if he goes to a back 4, that's he can afford to have a third one there. But as a natural centre-back yourself, do you like the idea of a full-back being moulded into that right-hand side of a back 3, or would you want 3 out-and-out centre-backs?
I don't mind with him at all. I think he's proven, Kyle Walker, that... And in my mind, I might actually think that it could possibly be his best position as a right-sided centre-back. You know, I think he's that good in that role. And what he brings is pace to that back 3. And I think you've got, you know, a ball player in Johnstone. You've got Harry Maguire's physical presence, aerial ability, defensive capability. And just that balance with Kyle Walker in a 3 with those two, I like it. I think he's got a good feel, a good like. And if that option is needed to play a back 3, he fits the bill perfectly, Kyle Walker. So I think he, as Danny said, I think he's the key player on that right side defensively that for me is number 1 in that role at right back and right side centre back at the moment.
So Danny gave a compelling case there for Kieran Trippier. Do you think, in general, over here, we maybe underrate him because he's not in the public eye as much because he plays in a different league? I mean, he has just, as Danny said, won the title with Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, he's more out of the forefront of everyone's minds here. But I can guarantee, and I would say that he's not out of the forefront of Gareth Southgate's mind, in my opinion. The way he talks about him, the way he speaks about him, his experience that we've mentioned. He's played him at left wing back, he's played left back at times. So again, does that argument of character, knowing that player's character, knowing their experience, the influence that he would have on the rest of the younger players in the squad, all of a sudden for me, looking how Gareth Southgate manages that group, that's hugely important.
We're all hoping that England get to quarter-finals, semi-finals, you know, deep into the tournament. And this is when it counts. We're all sort of assuming, maybe a little bit arrogantly, that England get through the group and it shouldn't be too much of a problem and get into the knockout stages. But as Matt just said, Maguire and Stones aren't blessed with pace. If you're coming up against the top side, do you put Trent Alexander-Arnold in if Walker's injured at right back, thinking he might get caught up a little bit at the pitch, there's an area to exploit down that side? Or do you go with Kieran Trippier, who has been defensively outstanding, coached by, obviously, Atletico Madrid and their team and Simeone, knowing how well he's played defensively this season, when you think actually being defensive is going to be a little bit more important. It's not an easy dilemma, I don't think, that right-back situation. It's also... let's be honest, we just hope that Kyle Walker plays, stays fit, and then there's no issue, is there?
Well, no, but you still need 2 if he goes 3 at the back. But centre-backs is your specialist subject. So let's go on to that now, because we've been saying this morning that Ben White is expected to be in today's squad, all right, the provisional one. What do you like about him?
Versatility, for one. I think he's played several different positions for Brighton this season. He's a very mobile centre-back, I'll say that, and I think that he gets about the pitch brilliantly. So we just mentioned about the mobility and how that's important, and I think that's good in terms of holding midfield, whether it's a back 3, which he plays regularly for Brighton, or a back 4. I think he's good with the ball. It doesn't surprise me that he's in that mix, if I'm honest. So he's a centre-back that I've watched a lot this season, and I think he's just made really positive strides into being named in this squad. I think
had he have stayed at Leeds and would have been in a mid-table Premier League side that were playing a bit more, you know, scoring more goals and further up the table, he'd probably been called into the England squad a little bit earlier. I said when he was in the Championship, he's the best defender in the Championship by a mile. Defensively, he's very, very good. He's a very, very good defender first and foremost. And then he's very, very good on the ball. And as Matt says, he can play different positions. But I look at the centre-back issue and compare it to times gone by, it's weak. And, you know, Maguire and Stones, OK, that's fair enough. But after that, you're then starting to struggle for experience and quality.
I was going to actually ask you about, because you were naming a few players there, I was going to ask you specifically about Tyrone Mings. How important is it to have a left-footed centre-back? You would know more than anyone.
Yeah. Great balance. It just gives balance to the back 4, but mainly in possession. So, you know, coming out with the ball, the type of angles of pass that you can make as a left footer is different. the movements in front of you in terms of midfield players receiving the ball. It is different. You can hit those diagonal passes if need to, get it onto your left foot, and it just makes having the ball easier. It's as simple as that. I think out of possession, you can train yourself and your positioning to be that side and to cope with it. And we've seen a lot of, great left-sided centre-backs who are right-footed over the years. So it isn't that big a deal, but I certainly think it brings balance. And if we're talking about really close competition, which I think it is, you mentioned Coady, Michael Keane, Ben White, Tyrone Mings, then perhaps just having that left foot might just be the difference to make that selection.
I just feel that I think it's Maguire and Stones, and then after that again, I just feel that the quality drops off a little bit, and there's not much between the next 4 or 5 players. Who do you throw in if Maguire or Stones don't make a game?
So something like that could make a difference, couldn't it? What foot you are, how well balanced you are with the team.
And Capello certainly like left foot, said about yourself. And then after you, it was Jolie and Lescott as well. Right, in 5 minutes' time, we're going to find out who is in that long list for the England squad. So just in a few minutes' time, we'll get more reaction from Matt and Danny. Welcome back to the England squad announcement live. Manager Gareth Southgate has just revealed a long list of players for his squad for the European Championships. The main headlines is that he's named 33 players in that provisional squad. Trent Alexander-Arnold has been one of the big decisions for the manager. He is in. There are fresh call-ups. Ben Godfrey, Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale is called up as well to the 33 as a goalkeeper, fourth choice goalkeeper. And up front, Ollie Watkins is in. No place for Patrick Bamford, though, or Eric Dyer, or Nick Pope, who is clearly not injured. Danny Ings as well. I'm going to bring you the squad in full now. So 33 names here, 4 goalkeepers. Dean Henderson, Sam Johnstone, Jordan Pickford and Aaron Ramsdale. The defenders are Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ben Chilwell, Conor Coady, Ben Godfrey of Everton, Reece James, Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings, Luke Shaw, Johnstone, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker and Ben White. So quite a few right-backs in there, as we were expecting. The midfielders, the central midfielders, Jude Bellingham is in. Jordan Henderson will be hoping to be fit enough. He's in there. Jesse Lingard has made it on loan at West Ham. He's been brilliant since joining on loan from Manchester United. Mason Mount, as expected, is there. Calvin Phillips, he'll be looking to prove his fitness as well. Declan Rice and James Ward-Prowse makes up the midfielders. And here are the forwards, so the wide forward stroke strikers. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish. Mason Greenwood is in there. Harry Kane and Marcus Rashford, obviously. Bukayo Saka of Arsenal is in this provisional 33-man squad. So is Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling and Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins. OK, so Danny Mills and Matt Upson are here to talk us through this, by the way. We will be bringing you the Gareth Southgate news conference live in an hour's time at 2 o'clock. All right, Matt, so 33 players in there. 7 players will have to miss out. We'll get to that in a moment. I'll give you a little bit more time to think about which 7, because I am going to ask you both, OK? But which names included stood out to you there?
I think included, obviously, I think Ben Godfrey, although a lot of people have been talking about Ben Godfrey at this level and getting a call up again. We've mentioned a couple of times in terms of versatility. He's played in a lot of different positions for Everton this season and done pretty well, you have to say. So I can understand that addition. Ben White, we touched on earlier. Bit of a surprise that he's in there. But sometimes you look at these situations and whether or not it's just an experience in terms of to be involved with this group of players, building into a tournament, because they are developing players.
Yeah, and Matt's right. And obviously, you have to remember, Gareth came from the under-21s and he's brought younger players through the system, getting players used to playing tournament football, all these sort of experiences. With a squad of 20, probably 15 players realistically, 15, 16 are going to be involved for the majority of it. So you're going to have 10 players that are there not to make up the numbers, but they're probably going to have very, very little involvement and very little game time, if any at all. So there'll be players in there thinking, well, actually, is it better to take an experienced player that's not going to be involved, or do I take a younger player and get him used to the whole situation, you know, the media, the pressure, all these other type of things for the future? And there might be, you know, the likes of Ben White might well be in, and Godfrey might be in that category, thinking this is good long-term planning to get them used to what it's going to be like next time around, when they're much more likely to be in the squad for definite. In
terms of players who are not in that 33-player squad, Matt, I mean, I just picked out 4 off the top of my head there. Nick Pope, in fairness, it's clear that he's injured. OK, so forget about that one. But Eric Dyer, who Southgate has seemed to like. Danny Ings, who you certainly like.
That's the one that I'm surprised at, that Ings has not made. I wonder if he's picked up some kind of injury.
He's had a few injuries this season, in fairness. Patrick Bamford was the other one that I picked out. Do any of them particularly stand out as someone that you would have? Or do you look at this squad and think, OK, given that Pope is injured, you know, fairly what you would have gone for?
Excellent season for Patrick Bamford, and I think he's knocking on the door for sure. I think he's playing really well, but hasn't been involved enough. I think Danny Ings, as Danny mentioned, is the one big surprise in this number of players. It's a shock to not see his name on the paper when there's 33 players. We
just heard from Alan Smith. You know, we're going to take him as part of the 26. You know, as the third striker. I had him down in my squad for 26 for sure as well. So I'm just wondering if there's something about Danny Ings' fitness perhaps that we don't know about that might come out very shortly.
Well, don't worry, you haven't got away with it, by the way. I will be asking you which 7 miss out in a moment. We're just going to move on because we're going to just to remind everybody of that squad in full now, starting with the goalkeepers. There they are. So Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, we knew that those two were going to be in. Sam Johnstone, we expected to be in as the 4, and Aaron Ramsdale is in because Nick Pope has missed out through injury. The defenders, now, like we said, no Eric Dyer in there, but there is Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ben Chilwell, Conor Coady, Ben Godfrey, Reece James, Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings is in there, Luke Shaw, Johnstone, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker and Ben White. So there's just 2 out-and-out left-backs there, so they will certainly, you would imagine, make the 26. By the way, these are just in alphabetical order, no other order than that. And in midfield, you've got Jude Bellingham, Jordan Henderson, Jesse Lingard, Mason Mount. He has become a real key player for Chelsea and England in recent months. Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, who maybe a month or so ago was a fitness doubt, but he is in there. That's good news for England. And James Ward-Prowse, who's been a favourite under Gareth Southgate this season, is in there as well. And the forwards, a long list of these, because Southgate will either play with an out-and-out striker and 2 wingers, or maybe a number 10 as well. So that's why there's so many on this list. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Phil Foden is in there, Jack Grealish, Mason Greenwood of Manchester United is in, Harry Kane and Marcus Rashford, no doubt about those two. Bukayo Saka does make it for Arsenal. Could be key if England play 3 at the back, because he can play left wing back. Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling and Ollie Watkins seems to have got the nod ahead of Danny Ings and Patrick Bamford. Remember, this is a 33-man squad, which will have to go down to 26 by the time the tournament starts. Let's cross back live to St George's Park, as our reporters Rob Dorset and Carvey Solical are there. What's your reaction?
Yes, we've just been talking about it between us, and the couple of things that stand out for me are obviously the good news stories are Ben White and Ben Godfrey being picked. But I think we've just got to be a bit careful. We shouldn't get too carried away, because if you look at this England squad, there are 6 centre-backs, and also Kyle Walker can play as a centre-back as well. And there's no way Gareth Southgate is going to have that many centre-backs. So I've just got a feeling that maybe Ben Godfrey and Ben White have been told, look, you are in this provisional squad, but there is a very, very good chance that you're not going to be in the final 26, especially if somebody like Harry Maguire is 100% fit.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's why it's a strange situation with this provisional squad that Southgate's announced, because those in any other circumstance, when Gareth Southgate names an England squad, would be your headlines, wouldn't they? Ben White, Ben Godfrey in the England squad for the first time. But look, no disrespect to them, I think it would be a long shot for them to be included in that 26 unless there are injury problems, unless Harry Maguire doesn't make it, unless at some point over the next 3 weeks Harry Maguire doesn't get enough training and game time for Gareth Southgate to be convinced that he's there. I think the headline for me, because of that, is the 4 centre-backs. It's something we've been debating for so long, but England have 4 world-class centre-backs. They are all in this provisional squad, and so that kicks the can down the road, if you like, for a decision that Gareth Southgate has to make in a week's time, which will be incredibly controversial. Reece James, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker, Trent Alexander-Arnold, they're all in there. He's only going to take 2, possibly 3 at an outside, so one of those big names is going to miss out.
I think the other sort of stories that we have to look out for and focus in on are Jesse Lingard back in the England squad. What an unbelievable second half to the season he's had. If you go back before Christmas, he was not playing for Manchester United. He's gone to West Ham. He's played so well. He's scored so many goals. He's forced his way back into the England squad. And it looks like he has now got a very, very good chance of being in that final 26. Also, Jude Bellingham. He is only 17. He'll still only be 17 in 19 days' time when England start Euro 2021. Against Croatia. Looks like he has done enough to be in that 26. Jack Grealish, of course, everyone wants to see him in the squad. He's there. Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka as well, who's had such a good season for Arsenal. He's been so versatile. Looks like he is going to make it as well. But let's just think for a minute about the players who've missed out. You've got to feel a bit for Eric Dyer, because he was such a key player for England in Russia, but the same as has happened with Dele Alli, he just hasn't been able to recreate the kind of form he had in Russia. and things haven't really gone well for him at Spurs. He wasn't involved at the weekend either, and he is somebody who's been really, really close to Gareth Southgate in the past, so I think it would have been difficult for Gareth to leave him out.
Absolutely, he's part of the leadership group. He's part of England's leadership group, and he's look, he's not had a great season by his own very high standards, but I'm amazed he's not in there because of the versatility that he offers, and that's what Gareth Southgate wanted in this squad. That's what he's talked a lot about. He offers cover in that central defensive midfield position where England have got problems. Calvin Phillips carrying an injury, Jordan Henderson not played since February. So look, I think that'll be one to ask Gareth Southgate when you speak to him in 45 minutes time now, and I do a piece with him in a bit more in depth later on. But I just wanted to talk about the strikers as well, because we knew that there was Ollie Watkins, Mason Greenwood, Danny Ings, Patrick Bamford all knocking on the door, and Southgate has gone for Watkins and Greenwood. For a start, that's the rehabilitation of Mason Greenwood. Remember, the last time he was involved in an England squad, he ended up getting sent home from Iceland for breaching coronavirus rules by meeting a local girl inside the team hotel. He hasn't been selected for an England squad since. Southgate was very, very critical of him. This is his rehabilitation, this is him back in, and it shows that Southgate thinks highly enough of Ollie Watkins in his first full season in the Premier League to give him the nod ahead of Danny Ings and Patrick Bamford.
Look, we've been saying that Gareth Southgate is going to have to lose, 7 players from this 33 next week. We've already said one of those right backs could go, maybe 1 or 2 centre-backs. I think when you look at midfielders, he's got 7 midfielders in this squad. I think he could very well keep all those 7. Then you're looking at the forwards, 10 forwards. It's interesting that players like Bukayo Saka, Jack Grealish have been listed as forwards, but I don't think he can go into the Euros having Ollie Watkins and Mason Greenwood. I think next week, to use a phrase you used just then, kind of kicking the problem down the road, this is a decision he's going to have to make next week, Ollie Watkins or Mason Greenwood. One other one that I want to ask you about, Rob, actually, a player you know well because you cover Leicester City. We haven't mentioned him yet, James Maddison. You know, he doesn't get into 23-man England squads. He doesn't get into 26-man England squads. And now he doesn't get into 33-man England squad.
It's as simple as that, and he's still recovering from that. He's not got full match sharpness. I think he's an issue for England's future. I don't think, because of the injury problems he's had, he hasn't even been playing for Leicester a full 90 minutes for the last couple of games. But he wasn't considered, was he? And it's interesting that Southgate has picked some players, irrespective of the injuries that they're carrying. Look at Jordan Henderson, look at Harry Maguire. He hasn't been prepared to consider James Maddison in that same vein. But I think you're right. I think we'll expect to see at least one of the right-backs go from this squad. We'll expect one of the goalkeepers to go. And by the way, I think that'll be Aaron Ramsdale or Sam Johnstone. They'll both be battling for that third goalkeeper spot now. I think 2 centre-backs will go at least, and those could be the 2 Bens that we're just talking about being called up for this provisional squad. And maybe 2 of the forward players as well. That looks like Jesse Lingard. Potentially, he's got a lot to do to win his final place. So look, it's the provisional squad. It's absolutely fascinating. Southgate's got a lot of questions to answer when we speak to him very shortly. But boy, it's going to make it exciting when we hear the 26. Which 7 are going to miss out?
Yeah, that's the big question at the moment. Rob and Carvey, thank you. As Rob said, we'll be bringing you Gareth Southgate's news conference live at 2 o'clock. And next, we've been to Darius Vassell.
We're rolling.
We're rolling to kick it out.
Welcome back to the England squad announcement live. If you're just joining us, Gareth Southgate has made some big calls with the provisional squad for the European Championship. There are 4 uncapped players in the squad, including Everton defender Ben Godfrey and Brighton centre-back Ben White. There are also 4 right-backs selected, including Liverpool's Trent Alexander-Arnold. Big names have also missed out, including Eric Dyer, and one of the key players from England's run to the semi-final of the World Cup, Dele Alli. We'll bring you Gareth Southgate's news conference live at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So here is in the squad in full, just to remind you of it. 4 goalkeepers: Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, Sam Johnstone and Aaron Ramsdale. Ramsdale and Johnstone are 2 of those uncapped players. And in defence, as we said, quite a few right-backs there, but Trent Alexander-Arnold is selected in this 33. He's one of 4 right-backs, as Reece James, Kieran Trippier and Kyle Walker. The 2 left-backs are Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw. At centre-back, Ben White and Ben Godfrey, uncapped at the moment. Harry Maguire is given a chance to prove his fitness. John Stones is there, so is Tyrone Mings and Conor Coady. In midfield, Southgate has selected the Liverpool captain Jordan Henderson, 17-year-old Jude Bellingham of Borussia Dortmund. Jesse Lingard's decision to move on loan to West Ham in January has paid dividends. He's included. Chelsea's Mason Mount, West Ham's Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips of Leeds and James Ward-Prowse complete the 7. And up front, there's 10 players, with Mason Greenwood and Ollie Watkins both making the provisional 33-man squad. Jack Grealish is also there after playing the last 4 games of the season for Aston Villa. And Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin is joined by Manchester City's Phil Foden, the captain Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling, while Borussia Dortmund's Jadon Sancho is in the 33, along with Arsenal's Bukayo Saka. Right, let's get some reaction now from Darius Vassell, a man who went to the Euros in 2004 and a World Cup 2 years earlier. Good afternoon to you, Darius. What do you make of that squad? It's 33 at the moment, which will be whittled down to 26.
Yeah, it is a big number, isn't it? I think everybody who's in the squad at this moment in time will be very pleased, obviously. My question marks that I see on it are the 4 goalkeepers straight away. The players that haven't been included, such as Maddison, Dele Alli, I always think that, you know, you take 3 keepers at the most and bring one of those other 2. But other than that, I think Gareth Southgate is pretty sure in what he's doing, and I know that it's a provisional squad and it's likely to, you know, be quite different in the end.
You mentioned Maddison and Ali there. We haven't talked much about those 2, actually, so I'll ask you about them. You specifically mentioned them there. What would they have brought to this squad, even if it is an expanded one?
Experience and quality. I mean, with Dele Alli, there's the experience. You know, he's been involved in England setup for a while, and then obviously Maddison. You know, his ability is unquestionable. We do have a lot of talent in midfield, we do, but you know, in these competitions, an injury can change everything. And when you've got somebody of the similar quality to put in place, you know, it keeps you in good stead. I just think I think that would keep us in more stead than having, you know, a 4th choice goalkeeper sitting there, you know, on the bench.
It was late last night that Gareth Southgate decided that he would have an expanded squad of 33 rather than the 26 final squad to play at the Euros. Now, if you had been one of the players who's been struggling with injury, like Harry Maguire and Jordan Henderson, 2 key players for England, how much would you appreciate having that extra time to just prove that you're 100%?
Yeah, I was just about to say I would be exactly that. I appreciate the opportunity to go out there and show that you're fit enough, you know, to train and play with, you know, top quality players and show where you're at. Obviously, honestly, you know, the England physio and the backroom staff get an opportunity to be close to these players and work out exactly what's going on with them. So I'd be very appreciative. But again, it's still a bit of pressure there because it's not final, is it? There still might be a chance that, you know, any one of these players don't end up being in the final squad.
Well, you were a striker for England and for Aston Villa as well. So let's talk about someone who'll be feeling very positive right now, and that is Ollie Watkins. He is in that 33. How highly do you rate him?
Yeah, really good. I was asked this question a few months back, and I felt like it was going to be a toss-up between him and Calvert-Lewin. I felt like they both had really good seasons. They caused the same sort of problems when they play. Really good players in good form. And to see them both there, I think it's fully deserved. I'm very proud of Ollie, and I hope that he can go, you know, one better than his England debut goal and go and do something really good in the England shirt. So I'm really proud of that.
When I look at all the forwards here, a lot of these play wide or just off the striker, Darius. But in terms of out-and-out strikers like you were, there's obviously Harry Kane, there's Watkins and there's Calvert-Lewin. There is only 3 of them in there because Ings and Bamford have missed out. Do you expect those 3 to go, or do you think he'll just take 2 and think, well, Rashford and maybe Mason Greenwood can play up there instead of playing wide?
I think Mason Greenwood is a big one that needs to come over. Obviously, in my day, it was I think a late inclusion into the squad was Wayne Rooney. And we all know where he took his career. I think Mason Greenwood is a special talent. I think he might be the diamond in the rough. He might be the one that comes good for us. I think he definitely has to go. It is big for me that he got selected. So. I think the out-and-out striker thing will work for England at times, and sometimes we'll have to adjust it and play it a little bit different. And it's great to have those players, left-footed players, talented players. You feel Foden's in and around the squad, and then the mix-up to change it up for us a little bit, so we're not so one-dimensional as a team.
I did say, Darius, that you were at the World Cup in 2002. You were also at the Euros in 2004. What are your memories of being told by Sven-Göran Eriksson that you were in those squads, and how did it come about?
Just form through playing for Aston Villa. Similar to Ollie Watkins, have a good season, a good run of form. The times when you do get selected in the camp, play well, train well. I think that's really important. Train well with those players. Those players understand you and believe in you as a player. And then before you know it, you get your call up. And for me, it was very much a part of knowing, my place in the squad. I wasn't, a first choice striker. I was very much behind, Emil Heskey and Michael Owen at times. And I knew my place. I knew what my role was going to be. And I tried to do that to the best of my ability. I think it's going to be the same with these players. I think first choice striker, we all know, will be Harry Kane. Touch wood, if anything happens to him, we'd have to look at how we patch that up. But it's about these players knowing their place, and when they get the opportunity, doing what they do well for their clubs, producing, performing and being consistent.
Can you remember the moment that you found out from Sven-Göran Eriksson that at the age, I think you were 21, that you were going to a World Cup, and then 2 years later a Euros?
Yeah, I didn't believe it. I got the phone call. I thought it was a bit of a wind-up. I didn't really believe it was Sven on the phone, but it was. He let me know that I'm getting a call up. I was very proud of that moment. And then, it was a roller coaster ride. I didn't look back. That I got my debut, and I got to go to, as he said, the European Championships and the World Cup. And it's a great experience. I wish I could have done better, and I wish I could have done more. I'd like to think that the strikers that are in a similar situation, as I was then, they're able to go out and go on better, produce something. Let us get, over the line, get us past that, final hurdle that we so often, tend to fall at.
And those players who are in a similar position, what's your message to them? Because when you look back at highlights of your career, where does playing for your country at a major tournament rank?
Oh, it's one of the biggest experiences of my football career. It's something that I didn't expect. It's something that I wasn't really aiming for. It was very much, handed to me, based on my, my form. But I wasn't expecting it. I think these players do expect it. I think they know that they're good, and they have that self-belief. And it's about, recreating that and putting that out on the football pitch, believing in the team and the philosophy that the manager's putting in place, and going out there and doing what you do best for your football team. Domestically, these players are on form. They're there for a reason. They're capable of scoring goals and providing goals, for us as an England setup. I think that they need to go out with that belief and confidence and really go and produce.
An exciting summer ahead, no doubt. Darius, thank you.
Thank you very much.
What a day for Brighton's Ben White and Everton's Ben Godfrey. They're in Gareth Southgate's provisional Euros squad. They are 4 uncapped players. In fact, reaction next.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in. We're all in to kick it out.
Partnering to end racism in sport.
Welcome back to the England squad announcement live. Gareth Southgate has made some big calls with the provisional squad for the European Championships. 4 uncapped players, including Everton defender Ben Godfrey and Brighton defender Ben White. 4 right-backs selected, including Liverpool's Trent Alexander-Arnold. Some of the big names that have missed out, though, Eric Dyer is one of those. He was key in the last World Cup, and so was Dele Alli. They've both missed out. We will be bringing you that Gareth Southgate news conference in about half an hour's time live, 2 o'clock this afternoon. But for now, we have Matt Upson and Danny. I didn't even say Matt Mills there. Matt Upson and Danny Mills in the studio, and these two have been debating in the last 2 breaks because I've asked them to decide which 7 players miss out. Gareth Southgate's named 33 today. That has to be cut down to 26. So 7 have to miss out. OK, let's start with the goalkeepers then. There's 4 in there at the moment: Henderson, Johnstone, Pickford and Ramsdale. Matt, which one of those 4 doesn't make the 26?
Ramsdale. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
OK. Well, this would be the first time he's been called up to a squad. Johnson hasn't actually played, Sam Johnson, but he has been in a squad in the past. So that was easy for the goalkeepers. Not so easy on the defenders, right? There's Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ben Chilwell, Conor, Coady, Ben Godfrey, Reece James, Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings, Luke Shaw, Johnstone, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker and Ben White. How many of those defenders miss out, first of all, Matt?
Well, I think it's very much dependent, and we're saying this, but the whole reason why we're talking about this amount of players is because of one of the key players' fitness, which is Harry Maguire. So I think that's first to note and say, well, a lot of this...
And Matt's right. If Maguire's not fit, you're playing 3 at the back. I think you have to if Maguire's not fit.
I don't disagree with that, because I don't think you've got possibly a centre-back partnership that's strong enough to go into a major tournament. But the 2 interesting ones are White and Godfrey. And what's interesting about them for me is that they're both really versatile. I don't think you can separate them in terms of range of positions that they've played this season. I will say that Ben White's played a lot in a back 3. I'm not sure if that lends itself well, because I think a back 4 could be the predominant formation for England if Harry Maguire's fit to play. So there's all so many different variables, but I feel that Ben White might get the nod to go. I think that he's come in quite late. He's shown...
We both talked about it there, and we both said Maguire and Stones go, Mings goes. That's your 3 main centre halves. But then you're looking at Maguire's fitness. If he's only half fit, I'd still take him in the 26. And give him the opportunity of 2 weeks recovery time to, before. And he might have missed the first game. That wouldn't be a massive issue. You can bring him back into the second, third game. Because it's not like he's missed loads and loads of football. He's still going to be match fit. But then if that's the case, if he's not 100%, you've got to take cover in those positions as well. So
if are you taking 4 centre-backs then, and you've said Maguire, Stones and... but if you're saying Maguire's in the 26 anyway, if there's Maguire, Stones and Mings, who's your 4th?
Those 3, in my opinion, are definite.
And who's your 4th?
I think you might take Ben White.
Okay. So you've got Coady and Godfrey
at the moment would miss out of my defenders.
That's just the centre-backs.
I think 4 right-backs will go. 4 right-backs. In terms of Walker, Trippier, Alexander-Arnold and James, I think all 4 of those could end up... We're talking about 26. We're used to picking a squad of 23. So I don't think it's going to be outrageous if all 4 of those went. I mean, Kyle Walker is a centre-back in my mind as well, especially in that back 3 role. And with 26 players available, why not?
Defensively is where your biggest issues are. That's what you've got to have. It's the Maguire situation, isn't it? It's all about that cover for Harry Maguire. And if he's not available, do you then have to go to 3 at the back? And that changes the whole dynamic.
So you'd pick 4 right-backs rather than 5 centre-backs, knowing that Walker can possibly
knowing that Walker can play that role, and Trippier has filled in on the left-hand side.
And left-back, I take it you're taking Chilwell and Shaw, who are both there. Yeah. So at the moment, you both said the same thing then. So Maguire, Stones, Mings, White, Chilwell, Shaw, Walker, James, Alexander-Arnold and Trippier. You're taking all of them? Is that right? Have I missed someone out?
No, yes,
I think that's right.
Ramsdale, Coady, Godfrey drop out so far.
Yes, correct.
Before we move into the midfield players.
OK, all right. Well, you both agreed on that one. Well, let's go into the midfielders. You can see that the way that Gareth Southgate has split it up. The way that the England have announced it is it's split into kind of central midfielders and then a load of forwards, so wide players and strikers. So in those central midfielders, Jude Bellingham, Jordan Henderson, Jesse Lingard, who's down as a midfielder, not a forward actually, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, and James Ward-Prowse. So 7 of them there. How many of them go?
I think 6.
6. So which one misses out from there?
I think Ward-Prowse misses out.
OK.
I think it's so interesting that we haven't even discussed Jude Bellingham. And I think that is a testament to him. That's such a positive... That name hasn't even come up in terms of, do you think he'll go? I think he's done that well.
I think his performances have been fantastic. He's incredibly young. He's incredibly energetic. And as you said, Matt, with 26 available to take, this is a great learning curve for the future. Yeah, because if he doesn't play in this tournament an awful lot, he's definitely going to play in the next one. He's going to be... if it could be. You look at... Again, if everybody's fit, Rice, Phillips, Bellingham, Mount, Foden, that could be a midfield in the World Cup in Qatar. Quite easily. So why would you not take all of those players to give them this experience of going into the next level?
But his maturity as a player so young allows you to take him. Similar to a Declan Rice. You know,
it's not a Theo Walcott situation,
no,
is it?
The maturity of how he plays and how he conducts himself is amazing, really.
OK, so, yeah, so it's a good point that it's kind of just been expected that, yes, he does go, which says everything about it, and that takes us down to the forwards. So I've Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Mason Greenwood, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka, Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling and Ollie Watkins.
This becomes a little bit more interesting for me. It really does, and I think you have to opt, and because Ings isn't available, and I heard you talking about, we obviously listened to Darius Vassell and his opinion of Ollie Watkins. I think it's interesting to know whether you go with more than 2 number 9s. So at the moment, your obvious selection is obviously Kane and Calvert-Lewin. They're your 2 number 9s that you say, if you're going to play a front three,
they're guaranteed.
They're going to lead the line. Yep. They play that role. Then you've got a mixture of players that can dot in around them, whether it be on the right, on the left, Foden on the right, and they can all play different sides, most of them as well. It's such an interesting combination. So that's where it becomes tricky as to whether or not you feel that you're going to have a huge array of those players with the capability of a Greenwood or a Rashford filling in at number 9 if you had to. I mean, what are the chances of Kane and Calvert-Lewin both not being available to play a game?
You can still play Sterling in that position.
Yeah.
You can play Rashford in that position. If 2 players get injured, or you end up playing a false 9.
But based on that, I think Watkins will miss out.
So Watkins misses out from those forwards, and have you got the same thing?
I had Watkins missing out, yes, as well. I've also got Mason Greenwood missing out as well,
And Saka in?
No, Saka would miss out in my team.
Oh, so
that would be the 7th.
OK.
Because it's just, you've got 10 forward players, 3 positions, really. And also Mason Mount can step up into that position. Jesse Lingard can play as that attacking midfielder if necessary as well. And I just think, is Watkins likely to play? I don't think he is. You know, I don't think he would be used as a substitute all that often. The debate is obviously Saka. I don't think, again, there's enough players on that left-hand side ahead of him. Greenwood would be the one because he's a finisher. He's a little bit different. But then who do you leave out for him?
This debate will be going on up and down the country, believe me, with 33 players named by Gareth Southgate, which will have to go down to 26 before the tournament starts. He's got a lot of questions to answer in his news conference. We'll bring you live at 2 p.m. And next, we have Rachel Yankee live, 127 England caps.
We're all in.
We're all in to kick it out.
As promised, we can speak live now to a former Arsenal winger of one of England's most capped players. 129 England caps, not 127, like I wrongly said. Rachel Yankee, sorry about that, first of all. Let's get your reaction to this squad, because Bukayo Saka is in. How much does he deserve this place after his performances for his club?
Well, I think he's been fantastic for Arsenal. It's exactly what Arsenal needed. That he brings the momentum. He can obviously play anywhere on the left, and I think he's been outstanding. And I've enjoyed his season, but I do worry, like Danny said, that he may not get the nod, because I think England have so many talented players that can do exactly the same job. I think his need for Arsenal is a lot higher than it is for England at the moment. But I hope he goes. Fingers are crossed. But there is that element of doubt there in my mind.
And talking about positions where there are lots of quality players, Rachel, right back, everyone's talking about it. Trent Alexander-Arnold is in there, but there are 4 right backs. Now, Gareth Southgate has delayed naming his final 26, but he still has a difficult decision whenever he makes it.
He does, and that right back position is so difficult. I suppose it just goes down to the style of play, and each game. How does the team want to play? And I mean, yeah, you can look at so many of the players. I mean, Reece James, obviously, people have been talking about. Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier, and Trent. I mean, he's quality anyway. But I suppose when you look at all of them and the qualities they bring, maybe you put the others ahead of Trent, but he's a fantastic player. I think it's an extremely difficult job to pick them, and yeah, maybe Gareth Southgate's looking at it in a whole different way, and maybe he keeps them all in because he wants to have versatility. Reece James can play in different positions, so could, I suppose, Trent Alexander and the other 2 fullbacks in Kyle Walker and Trippier. So I don't know how you look at it, but it's a very difficult decision.
I'm just going to reiterate that you earned 129 caps for your country. How important is experience in the squad? There's actually no players older than 30 in this one.
I think it's really important. I mean, you need, when you go into tournaments, it's about keeping a good squad, a healthy squad, a good minds on people. You've got to have a good blend of experience and youth, and people that are there to motivate the team. You can have people that are not necessarily starters all of the games, but good people to have around the squad, and good people that are leaders and morale boosters. So I think Gareth Southgate would look at the squad and look at the characters he needs to bring in, leaders, some youthful players that will go onto the pitch and won't fear playing in a big tournament and grasping their opportunity, and some more experienced heads that will keep everybody very level-headed and thoughtful about what they're doing and the path that they're going.
And Rachel,
I mean, look at the team there of the 30, that is quite a good blend.
Yeah, and Rachel, what are your memories of the first time you were told that you were going to a major tournament? Because that's what's going to happen to some of these players.
Yeah, I was very young, to be honest, and I think I was just 17, and I think you just want to get out there and play, and I just embrace the experience of what it's like, and probably as I got older, started to understand the seriousness of the tournament, the consequences of the tournament. When I was younger, I just wanted to go play, have fun, and sort of you just take everything in your stride. So that's why it's always important to have a really good blend of experience and youth.
Yeah, Rachel, I love seeing that. England 1997 to 2013, a true legend of the game. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Let's get now to a man who led England to the European Championships in 2004, as well as 2 World Cups as well, because former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson joins us now. Sven, great to speak to you. Just talk us through how you used to break the news to the players about whether they were in or out of the squad.
Well, if it's some surprises for the players, I would phone them before, of course, if they are in or they are not in. But normally you have 75% of the squad. Normally they know that they will be picked. So you don't really need to phone them and say you are in, if they are in. So, that's how I did it, of course.
There will be a few players who Gareth Southgate has to ring and deliver the bad news that they haven't made it. How hard is that for a national team manager to do? Because you know that you're going to be breaking someone's heart.
That's not pleasant at all. That's the bad side of the job, of course, telling people that you are not in the squad for the Euro in this case. Or it's the same as any coach you have. When you have to tell people on Sunday that you are not playing and you're not even on the bench. That's those decisions you have to take, and you have to explain them to the players, of course.
And the thing is, this year, because of coronavirus, Gareth Southgate is allowed to name 3 extra players. When he eventually names his final squad, which will be next week, he's allowed to take 26 rather than 23. That must be a bonus that you can have those 3 extra players for so many reasons.
Yeah, of course it is, and I think it's right, because probably if you take the ranking of them in the head of Southgate, probably the 3 last, they will not win the Euro for. But anyhow, it's good for them to be there, and it's much better for the coach and for everyone to take them, and they will be happy because they are picked, and it makes the job for the manager easier as well.
Sven, there are a few players who've been injured lately, like Jordan Henderson and Harry Maguire, key players for Gareth Southgate, but you've dealt with the headache of injuries going into major tournaments. There was David Beckham, there was Wayne Rooney, there were Michael Owen. Ultimately, who decides? Is it down to the player to decide whether he's fit enough, and you just have to trust him?
Well, it's very much up to the player, of course, that he thinks that he might be available. If not the first game, maybe the second or third or whatever. But the main guy who has to decide is a doctor, the doctor of the club, together with the doctor of the national team. US Southgate now, of course, he has to speak to the manager of the club and the doctors of the doctor of the club and the doctor of the national team and take a decision. Shall we do it or not? And you always have that as a big problem when it's a big player, huge player. And I had it with Beckham and with Rooney. It's not. It's important players for the national team. So I decided to take them, even if I was not sure they could perform at the best. But if it's great players, you take them. You gamble a little bit, I think.
How much will it help Gareth Southgate that he has got one major tournament under his belt back in 2018? I mean, how much easier was it? How much more prepared were you in 2004 from when your first one for England in 2002?
Well, experience counts a lot in this job, and especially when you go to big tournaments. You know it will be a long time together. You know that you have to practice, of course, you have to play, travel and so on. But also, what do you do with the players when you're not practicing and so on? So everything is important, and you learn from every tournament. So experience is very important. And I mean, Southgate and England, they did extremely well 2-3 years ago, and I think they will do well this time as well, and maybe even better.
Always great to speak to you, Sven. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Gareth Southgate has named 33 players provisionally, and we will be hearing live from the England manager next. Welcome back. This is the England squad announcement live. We're expecting to hear from England manager Gareth Southgate in the next few minutes. He's named 33 players in his provisional squad for the European Championships. Trent Alexander-Arnold has been named in the squad. It was a big decision. He's in, but there are fresh call-ups for Ben Godfrey, Ben White and Aaron Ramsdale as well. Also called up as fourth goalkeeper, and Ollie Watkins is in up front, but no place for Patrick Bamford or Danny Ings. So let's have a look at the four goalkeepers then. We'll go through the squad in full, 33 of them, which have to go down to 26 before the tournament starts. Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford as expected. Sam Johnstone we expected to be in there with Nick Pope injured, and Aaron Ramsdale comes in as well. In the defence, four right-backs you'll notice, but it's Alexander-Arnold, Chilwell, Coady, Ben Godfrey, Reece James, Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings, Luke Shaw, Johnstone, Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker and Ben White. In midfield, a standout name there is Jude Bellingham, the teenager playing for Borussia Dortmund, is in the squad. Henderson, he's only just back from injury. He is in the squad as expected. Jesse Lingard, what a decision it was from him to join West Ham on loan. He is in the squad. So is Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice and James Ward-Prowse. As for the forwards, quite a few of them there. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Phil Foden, who can, of course, play a little bit deeper. So can Jack Grealish, I suppose. Mason Greenwood, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka, who can play left wing, right wing, or left back, left wing back even. Jadon Sancho, who can play both sides. So can Raheem Sterling. And Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa is in there as well. Right, we've got Matt Upson for a few more minutes, and we've got Danny Mills till after the news conference as well. Danny, I know that you've known Gareth Southgate for quite some time. Has his demeanour changed? Is he very calm about things like this? Because as a nation, we're all so excited and hyped up for this, but is the manager calm in these situations?
Yeah, he is. He's very, very thoughtful. We'll be speaking to the players all the time, engages with them probably a lot more than managers have done in the past. I think, he will know what the team that he wants to play. He will know then the backups for that. I think he already knows what he's strongest. It just depends on injuries.
Well, we're going to hear from him right now because he's ready. He's bang on 2 o'clock.
Please remain on mute at all times. Only unmute yourself.
Southgate in a moment. That's the press office speaking. A big thank you to Matt Upson, by the way, who's leaving now. Maybe he's just got the call from Gareth Southgate. We can hear from him now.
With the option for follow-up. So without further ado, Carve, do you want to get us underway?
Well, Gareth, you've named a 33-man squad instead of 26. What was the thinking behind that?
Hi, Carve. Really, I think our situation is more complicated than any other country at the moment. We've known for a little while that we've got, of this 33, 12 players still to play in the European finals this week. So we were always going to need some additional players for the first part of our camp. Add into that, we've got some injuries that are at various stages. A couple we have very little information about at the moment, and a couple who are back into training or back into matches in Jordan and Jack Grealish, but still not in training consistently, not training with the team in Jordan's case. So we felt that more time is going to help us to make better decisions. And I've always said my preference would be to name the squad as a clean 26. We were able to do that ahead of Russia. We had standby players that knew their role, and I think that's always a preferable situation. But we've not got an ideal hand of cards this time, and there are a lot of unknowns, and I think information and evidence is really important when you're making decisions, and we'll have a lot more in the next 7 days, and we'll be able to make the best possible decisions that we can.
You've got 4 right backs in the squad at the moment. There's been a lot of debate about which right back could miss out. Trent Alexander-Arnold wasn't in your last squad. He is in this one. Has he done enough to be in the final 26?
Well, I could easily get drawn into talking about any number of individuals that might be in the 26, and then I'm going to get myself in a mess. So what I would say is your looking at 4 right-backs, and I know people feel I have an obsession with right-backs, I just see 4 good footballers. Trippier can play right-back or left-back. Trent can play right-back, wing-back. I think he can play in midfield. In the last few days, I've seen Reece James play right of a 3 at wing-back in the middle of midfield. We're going to a tournament, and those sorts of flexible players that can fulfil different roles but are good footballers are going to be hugely important to us. So we really don't know how the next few weeks are going to play out in terms of availability, injuries, what our best systems will be with the people we've got available. We've got too many question marks as I sit here today, but that will all become far clearer. We know what we'd like to do, and we've got good contingencies in place. With this squad, we've got a nice balance of some young players who, if they're with us for 1 week or for 5 weeks, it's going to be a brilliant experience for them. And we wanted to see some young players in this group as well. But also, of course, we're building towards a hugely exciting summer, and we've got to create a team that can win. So we're trying to balance all of those decisions.
Ben Godfrey and Ben White are in the squad for the first time. Is that a risk? What were you thinking behind their inclusion? And have you told that there is a good chance that they won't be in the final 26?
Well, again, the private conversations I've had with players, I'm not going to go into too much, but I think they're both exciting young defenders. There are others that we've also been looking at who we really like. Ezri Konsa has had a good season at Aston Villa. Fikayo's done well at Milan. So these two are very flexible. They can play in different roles as well. They can play left, right, midfield in Ben White's case. And this is a great opportunity for us to get to know them a bit better, for them to work with the team. I think it's works for everybody. So there's no way of knowing how long they'll be with us at this stage, but it should be a fantastic experience for all of them.
How difficult was it for you to leave out Eric Dyer? He's a player who's always been very close to you. You've made England captain in the past. He was part of your leadership group. He scored that penalty against Colombia at the World Cup. Must have been really, really difficult to tell him that he was not going to be in the squad. Yes, definitely. He is a man who I have tremendous respect for. And he has been, as you've rightly identified, a key player in some of our biggest nights, some of our biggest moments. And unfortunately, I just don't think his season's been strong enough to be in the squad. And that's a difficult call, because you know how much, or I know how much he brings to the whole group. And when you're away at a tournament, those team players, those people that put the team first are critical. So that wasn't an easy conversation, but he's an outstanding professional, and he took the news in a really professional way. I just want to ask you about one of his teammates, Kane. Obviously, looks like he wants to leave Spurs this summer. How much of a danger that will become a distraction for you this summer, especially the fact that he is your captain? For instance, when he joins up with you at the weekend, he have to just park that one side. You say, look, once with the England cap, there can be no talks with agents. There can't be medicals for moves while you're here. You have to be 100% focused on England. Is that a conversation that you had with him, or a conversation that you need to have with him? Well, I don't ever need to have a conversation with Harry Kane regarding focus or professionalism. He has got one goal this summer whilst with us, and that's to win a European Championship. And I know how important that is for him at this moment in time. What's going on at his club is a matter for him and Tottenham. He's obviously made some
statements in the last few days. So in many respects, that's out of the way now. And I don't think, I'm talking across the board here, I think it's very unlikely that transfer deals will be done while we're away. I think that's different when we have our camps in September. Very often we're on that deadline moment, and every now and then we've had to help facilitate a medical or a meeting between a player and a manager. I'm very realistic about those things. We're not going to stop phones ringing. We can't control conversations that are going on in private. But I wouldn't expect, I think most deals are done at the end of tournaments, or they're done in the first week after the end of the season. And I would expect anything across the board with our players to be after the tournament.
Regarding Harry Maguire, a couple of weeks ago, Gary Neville said that he is the most important player in your squad. He's the one player that you can't do without. How concerned are you about his injury situation at the moment? And do you have any information regarding whether he will be fit to play for England this summer?
No, I mean, understandably, from a club perspective, they've got a huge final tomorrow, and that hasn't been so easy for us to get information. And I totally understand that. So we will know more in the next couple of days, really. And that's, again, another reason why that sort of lack of information. Calvin Phillips was an injury, 93rd minute on Sunday. We'll know more about that in the next few days as to its severity and possible timelines. So these are the things that the realities we have had to cope with in the last few days, and it's why we just felt that more time would help us.
Just two quick questions for me to finish off, Gareth. The first one regarding Mason Greenwood. This is the first time he's been in one of the squads since what happened in Iceland. Is that all forgotten now? And what can he bring to this England squad? There's been a lot of talk recently about the fact that apart from Harry Kane, he is probably the best finisher in the Premier League. He's English.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the past, that is absolutely the past. I spoke with Mason before we selected him with the under-21s in March to make that very clear. So, I hope that his inclusion on this provisional list shows that, we're happy to select him. We think young people make mistakes. We move on from it. It was the same with Phil. He is an absolutely outstanding finisher. There's no question about that. He's another very young player. I think we've got around 18 players with less than 10 caps on this list. So a lot of inexperienced international players, and his all-round game is still coming together. But he's clearly got an exceptional talent for finishing, and that's why we picked him back in September.
And the one from me, Alan Russell, your attacking coach, has left. Are you going to be replacing him for this tournament?
Yes, we won't have a like-for-like replacement in that sort of specific area of work, but I'm disappointed for Alan and for us that situation has occurred. But we're really pleased to be able to bring Graham Jones in, who is obviously working with Newcastle at the moment. I've known Graham quite a while. He's got fantastic experiences of tournament football with Belgium, of course, with Roberto Martinez. Great experiences as an assistant manager and as a manager. So I'm really pleased that with Steve Holland, with Graham, with Martin Margetson, who's been to semi-finals with us and with Wales, and with Chris Powell, that we've got a really strong coaching team, and we're really looking forward to that challenge.
Before we progress, I am aware that some of you are picking up on connection issues. Just for clarity, we will circulate the full clean recording from this end to all, just to avoid any doubt, but we will persevere. Next, we've Carrie Brown from beIN Sports. Carrie, are you there?
Hello.
Yep.
Sorry.
We've got you.
Hello, Gareth. I think a lot of Leicester fans will be asking why James Maddison, in terms of pedigree, what he's achieved in his career so far, isn't in the squad. Could you explain your decision-making process there?
Yeah, look, it's an area of the pitch where we've got unbelievable competition for places, and we just feel that there are players there that are ahead of James in those areas of the pitch. He's had a season that's unfortunately for him been disrupted by injury, and in more recent weeks he hasn't necessarily always been starting as well. It's been quite interesting. He hasn't been taking set plays. I've noticed Tielemans has been taking their set plays, which I don't know if there's more involved in that, but in most simple terms, we feel we've got players in those areas of the pitch that at the moment we see them as just ahead of James.
Saw the immediate impact Bellingham had coming into the squad, almost solidifying himself in one match. Ben White coming in the versatile player too. How much will you be assessing how well these players fit into the camp and fit into the chemistry of the side when you choose your final squad?
Yes, there's all sorts of things to consider. We're going to be away for a long period of time, and we're going to have 26 players for 23 places on a lot of match days. So it's a real test for the whole group on putting the team first, putting England first, recognising everybody will have their moment of a special moment that happens to them, maybe being the headline for a particular game, and those things always go in cycles. But we'll succeed as a collective, and right from the first day we report, that's part of the journey. When we reported ahead of Russia, we've got great photographic memories, books that we've got from day one right the way through, and some of those prep camps were really important to building the team spirit, for going through the detail of how we played. There were contributions that time from Adam Lallana, Jake Livermore, Tom Heaton, Lewis Cook. They were all training with us as standby players, and they played a massive part in that journey. So we never forget that. We've got to make sure that those contributions are valued. There's obviously still some difficult conversations for us to have, but those first 10 days of the camp with the two friendlies are a critical part of our preparation.
Jack Pitbrook.
Hi, Gareth. When are you expecting to get the players who are playing in the European finals back in your squad?
We'll give them a period of rest after their finals, similar to what we've done with the players that finished on the last day of the Premier League. Again, that's exactly how we approached it ahead of Russia. We had Jordan Henderson and Trent came in late for that. We think that time, when we've talked with the players about their experiences of the past, to have a break with their families, they felt was their preference to going away perhaps somewhere with the team. And we think that is invaluable time, given our aim is to be here for 9 games, including the friendlies. And that's going to be a period of time where probably towards from the start of the tournament onwards, there's a fair chance we won't be able to see families. So we want to get that first part right and get everybody psychologically fresh. So it does affect who we can play in those first 2 friendlies, and we've also got to make sure physically we give the players the right load. We can't overplay the players we've got in those friendlies, and we've also got players that might only be read together. Those players will report later.
Can we look at that's 1 week for the Europa League final players and 1 week Champions League final players?
It's probably not exactly a week, but it'll be 5 or 6 days, depending on the slightly different periodisation for the games and when they're due to report.
Thanks, Jack. Next we'll go to Ryan Bowden.
Right, OK, we will have much more from Gareth Southgate because that news conference is still going to go on. But let's just recap some of the answers he gave there. He first of all explained why there's 33 players in the squad rather than 26. He says he's got 12 players involved in either the Europa League final or Champions League final. Plus, he's got a few injury issues where he doesn't know exactly how fit some of his players are as yet. And in the past, he's had standby players anyway, so this isn't very much different. He says he'll know a lot more in 7 days. He was asked about the 4 right-backs. He said he doesn't see 4 right-backs, he sees 4 good players and how versatile they are. He said that Trent Alexander-Arnold can even play in central midfield if he needs him. He says that he's seen Reece James play on the right-hand side of a back 3, as he did in the FA Cup final against Leicester, didn't he? So he says he just sees 4 good players as opposed to 4 right-backs. Interestingly, when he was asked about the 2 uncapped centre-backs he's brought in, Ben White and Ben Godfrey, he did mention by name Ezri Konsa and Fikayo Tomori, who seem to have just missed out in this squad, but he's opted for White and Godfrey. He didn't, at that stage, mention Eric Dyer, so Carve Solokal, our reporter, asked him about him. He says he's got a lot of respect for Eric Dyer, and he was a key player 3 years ago at the World Cup. He just doesn't think his season has been strong enough for him to get in. He was also asked about whether Harry Kane's potential transfer could be a distraction. He says that Gareth Southgate has no intention of talking to Southgate about it, to Kane, about his situation at Tottenham. He said he's got 1 goal, and that is the Euros with England. And he actually did say that usually these transfers would take place after the Euros anyway, despite the fact that we know Harry Kane would like any deal tied up before it happens. He's been asked about Harry Maguire's fitness. He says he's just not sure of his fitness at this stage. It's been hard to gauge his fitness because he's concentrating on the Europa League final. He's also not sure about Calvin Phillips' fitness as well, but they are both in this 33-man squad. But just finally, there is a new coach. He lost his attacking coach. He has brought in Graham Jones, who previously worked with Roberto Martinez at Belgium as the coach for the national team, but he's currently at Newcastle. He came in to help Steve Bruce at St James's Park. He is now going to be part of the England coaching staff at the Euros, along with Martin Margetson, the goalkeeping coach, and Chris Powell as well. That news conference is still going on. We'll recap with Danny Mills shortly and bring you anything more from Southgate as we get it.
We're all in to kick it out.
This is the England squad announcement live. We've just brought you Gareth Southgate's news conference live here on Sky Sports News. And on the issue of right-backs, the manager has picked 4 in his squad. And Southgate said, you're looking at 4 right-backs. People feel I have an obsession with right-backs. I just see good footballers. Trippier can play right or left-back. Trent can play right-back, wing-back. I think he can play midfield. In the last few days, I've seen Reece James play right of a 3 at wing-back and in midfield. Right, so we've got a former England right-back here in Danny Mills. Does he have a point there?
Yeah, of course he does. And he's not going to show his hand this early, is he? And say to a player, well, you're not really in my thinking. We've talked many, many times. At the moment, it looks like it's a back 4. I would say Kyle Walker is the right back. But that can change in a heartbeat. Gareth said there, we're not quite sure about some players' fitness levels. Harry Maguire is the key, I think, to everything at the moment. Because if Harry Maguire breaks down or isn't 100% fit, I then think you probably change to a back 3. That changes the dynamic completely. Suddenly then you're looking at the wing backs, because then it'll be Walker, Stones, possibly Tyrone Mings in there at centre half. I think he'll go with the 3. You're then looking at wing backs, then it's Reece James, Trent Alexander-Arnold that come into play. Probably more so than Trippier, but Trippier can play left back if there's injury on that side. So the defence is the hard bit, and the other issue that I can't quite work out at the moment is where do you play Phil Foden? Do you play him as one of the attacking midfield players, or do you play him sort of wide on the right hand side where he plays for Manchester City? Coming in on that left foot, he plays. It's just working out where he plays. Declan Rice is going to be the holding player. Do you play one on his own, maybe Mount, Foden or Lingard ahead of that, or do you play Calvin Phillips possibly alongside him?
Well, I'm going to ask you to name your 11 in a moment. And just finally on the right backs, I know that you're not a big fan of stats, but someone's worked hard on these stats, so I'm going to bring them up for you anyway to talk you through them, because the 4 right backs are in the squad. We've got some stats from this season, okay, in the league. All right, you can see that Alexander-Arnold and James have played a few more games than Walker and Trippier, but look at assists standing out there, Danny, with Alexander-Arnold and Trippier. So if he does play with a back 3, you would expect one of those to be the wing backs. Was that fair?
Probably. We know that Kieran Trippier has fantastic delivery. That's why Gareth changed the system in Russia, to get Kieran Trippier going forward more, to use his delivery. We know what he's like from set pieces, absolutely exceptional. But in big tournaments, getting towards the end of tournaments, it's about how well you defend. You've got to be able to defend. You can't be conceding 2 goals against some of the best teams in the world. You're not going to come back and win that 3-2. It very, very rarely happens. So you've got to go on defensively your strength. Because you've got Sterling, Kane, Foden, Lingard, Mount, Grealish, Rashford, Greenwood possibly. All these players can go and attack and score you goals. So you've got to be tight. You're not going to be... You shouldn't be relying on your full-backs or your wing-backs to win a Euros for you. Yes, they will play a part, but generally it's going to be those front players that score the goals, create and assist. Make sure your defence is very, very tight.
Well, you've been trying to write down a starting 11.
Keeps changing.
For that opening game, and I can see that you've crossed a lot of names out. I was looking at a bit of a mess there, but what if it was tomorrow and everyone was fit? All right, so a couple of ifs there. What would you go with?
I think if this was, let's pretend this is a semi-final, a really important game against very, very strong opposition. I would go Pickford, Walker, Stones, Maguire and Shaw. Now, bearing in mind this would be a semi-final, if everybody is fit and in form, I would go Rice and Henderson. Huge doubts over Henderson. If he's not fit, I think you'd have to put Calvin Phillips alongside Declan Rice.
Two sitting midfielders.
2 sitting midfielders. Again, you're talking about against some of the very best teams in Europe. Where you're going to come under pressure no matter how good you are. And then ahead of that, I would go with Mason Mount. I would then go with Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane and Phil Foden, because I still think you've got to have a little bit of pace up front. And Sterling, I know people have said his form has been a bit sketchy. I think he's got experience. He's played in big games and he offers you that threat in behind and that pace alongside Kane and then the ability of Foden.
There's so many forward players missing out there, but that's because England actually have an abundance of talent in that area. If you, when this squad finally all get together for that first training session as a final squad. What's the atmosphere like? Is it all like hugging and
well, it can be now.
So happy that that's legal now. Remember that.
Yeah, it's excitement. That's the most important thing. There will still be players. There are players in there. Pickford, Stones, Maguire, Walker, Rice, Kane know they're going to play. Foden probably knows they're going to play. There's 7 or 8 in there that know they're going to play. The rest are vying for places, so they've got to perform. And this is where training becomes very, very important. The standards in training will be exceptional. They will be greater than any club side that these players experience. The intensity. Because even if you're on the bench, you want to be first substitute getting on. You do not want to go to a tournament and sit on the sidelines and not play a part in it. Even if you go on to win it, it's great to be part of something, but if you've not played, you don't always feel like you've been really involved in it. So the intensity will be incredibly high, and that's often, and this is sort of where Gareth Southgate might not have to choose players, that between now and the squad announcement, between now and the tournament, there will be injuries. That is a given.
How far can England go in the tournament? And a lot of people, I think it might be you that mentioned it earlier, that people are just assuming that England get out of the group. But Czech Republic, pretty good. Croatia, very good. And England v Scotland, no one's up for a game more than Scotland are against England in any sport.
Come on, if you don't, I know all the Scottish fans are going to know, but if you're England, the players that we have, and you don't beat Scotland, you probably don't deserve to get out of the group. And that would be considered, I think, a huge failing. It's mandatory that England get out of the group. You go beyond that, you need a little bit of luck. You need to be defensively solid. You need your good players to perform. And you are going to need a little bit of luck. We've seen that all the way through. Champions League, Europa League, even the Premier League. You need a decision to go your way, one of those borderline decisions, millimetres, offside, toenail, whatever it might be. There's no reason why England can't win it. Defensively, I think, is my only question. And I think it's that the fitness of Harry Maguire is going to be key to absolutely everything.
Basically, it's coming home.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. No, it would be absolutely amazing. We saw what the World Cup did for this country. The Euros could have a very, very similar effect. Let's hope it does, but nothing's guaranteed.
No, absolutely not. Danny, great to see you today. Thanks for coming, and to Matt Upson as well. Right, coming up, we'll bring you more from Gareth Southgate's news conference on the day he names 33-man provisional squad for the European Championship.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in.
We're all in to kick it out.
Partnering to end racism in sport.
Let's hear more from Gareth Southgate now. He broke off from the news conference as the England manager was being asked some further questions about Harry Kane. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
I think Harry has always had that capability as a player. He's always been able to play from a very young age as a number 9 or a number 10. So clearly that's been more pronounced this year in terms of the numbers. There were certain games like the game at Southampton where I think he created 4 for Son, didn't he? So there's been some clear patterns within their team that have consistently worked and have been a great provider of goals for them. But he's always had that. He's done that with us. He's for a centre forward who is such an outstanding goal scorer, he's got a fabulous weight of pass and great vision to see those passes. So he's an all-round outstanding player. Ben's a younger player, and there's a bit of an investment for the future there. We know that Lewis has had a very good season with Brighton, and I know Graham is delighted with what he's done for them. With Ben, we've tracked him since he was on loan at Leeds. We've seen him play in midfield. We've seen him play across the back line. He's comfortable with the ball. He's got pace. So, we know it's still early with centre-backs like Ben White, Ben Godfrey, Fikayo. Centre-backs tend to mature later, but these guys are getting good experiences at a young age in the Premier League. They're working with good coaches at their clubs. And we think it's a good opportunity for them to come and work with us. For Nick, it's heartbreaking to get an injury so close to a major tournament. He's been a fantastic member of our squad, totally unselfish guy. In Russia, he spent hour after hour throwing himself around at penalties, which was as important in our success in the penalty shootout as the guys that took it, frankly, because him and Jack Butland were phenomenal in those situations. So, yeah, I'm really disappointed for him. It obviously opens up opportunities for others. And, Sam and Aaron have finished the season well with their clubs. So Dean is of course, in that battle for the number 1 spot at Manchester United at the moment. So, and I've got to say, Jordan has finished the season really strongly. I think since he's come back from his injury, his focus, his calmness in the goal has really stood out. So I'm very pleased with his form. What did we learn from the Nations League? Well, in terms of those Champions League players arriving, it wasn't a case of what we learned. We knew that was going to be incredibly complicated. I think we had 7 or more players, of which 4 or 5 arrived 3 days before a massive game for us, having lost one of the biggest games of their lives. I don't think you could really appreciate how difficult that was in terms of preparing our team, not only the physical strain of that match, but the emotional baggage of for the winners and the losers. So what we have on this occasion is a little bit more time between that game and when the players arrive. Then we could only give them 2 days. We were playing 3 days later. Now we're able to give them a little bit of time to go and decompress, and then time to come in and work with us and focus on the tournament, which they've of course got huge motivation for anyway. The 26, I'm still not a fan of 26. I think, as Luis Enrique said yesterday, you want everybody to feel that they're there or thereabouts, and we could end up, if we've got everybody available and fit for each match, we could end up with people not even on the bench. So that's not a great team dynamic. But I think the risk of not taking 26, especially if we've got injury doubts and we just don't know what could happen with COVID and everything else. So we felt that's important. I think Lewis has gone smaller partly for the harmony of the group, but I suspect he's also got the backup of knowing his under-21s are in their European finals, and if they have any issues in the first 10 days or so, I suspect he'd be able to call in some very good quality players from that group. Maybe. I don't know all of his thinking, but I suspect that's a good fallback, whereas with us, we'd be calling players off the beach after a fortnight, and that won't work really. So, as you say, everybody's going to approach that differently. It's fascinating to see how everybody's done it. Some named a week ago, they were able to do that. Everybody's circumstances are a bit different, really. The basis of this squad is the squad we had together in March. There's obviously players that have come back into the squad, and we were very pleased. So, the forward players that we've selected were with us in March, and that is unfortunate that Danny's missed that. There are, of course, Danny, Patrick, Bamford have had very good seasons, and I've said that before, but we didn't see any reason to change those positions from the players that did well for us in those games, the 3 qualifiers that we won in March.
Yeah, some interesting thoughts there from Gareth Southgate. In the final part of our special squad announcement show, we'll recap that provisional squad and round up some of the reaction to who's in and who's out.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in. We're all in to kick it out.
Partnering to end racism in sport.
Welcome back to the England squad announcement live. Let's recap the 33 players who are in Gareth Southgate's provisional squad for the European Championships. It's a squad in full, starting with the goalkeepers. The contingent is led by Everton's Jordan Pickford. He's joined by Manchester United's Dean Henderson, West Brom's Sam Johnstone, Sheffield United's Aaron Ramsdale. Ramsdale benefits after the injury to Nick Pope, who will miss the tournament. He's having knee surgery. In defence, Trent Alexander-Arnold is selected by Gareth Southgate. The Liverpool defender is one of 4 right-backs in the squad, alongside Reece James, Kieran Trippier and Kyle Walker. Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw are the left-backs. At centre-back, Ben White and Ben Godfrey are set to make their England debuts. Also in the squad, Harry Maguire is given the chance to prove his fitness. Johnstone is there alongside Tyrone Mings and Conor Coady. In midfield, Southgate has included the Liverpool captain Jordan Henderson and 17-year-old Jude Bellingham of Borussia Dortmund. Jesse Lingard's decision to move on loan to West Ham in January has paid dividends. He's included Chelsea's Mason Mount, West Ham's Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips of Leeds and James Ward-Prowse complete the 7. Up front, Southgate's selected 10 players, with Mason Greenwood and Ollie Watkins both making the provisional 33-man squad. Jack Grealish is also there after playing the last 4 games of the season for Aston Villa. Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin is joined by Manchester City's Phil Foden, the skipper Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling, while Borussia Dortmund's Jadon Sancho is in the 33 along with Arsenal's Bukayo Saka. Well, someone who knows all about the headache of selection is former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson. He's told us how hard it is when you don't know if a key player will be fit in time.
Well, it's very much up to the player, of course, that he thinks that he might be available. If not the first game, maybe the second or third or whatever. But the main guy who has to decide is a doctor, the doctor of the club, together with the doctor of the national team. US Southgate now, of course, he has to speak to the manager of the club and the doctors of the doctor of the club and the doctor of the national team and take a decision. Shall we do it or not? And you always have that as a big problem when it's a big player, huge player. And I had it with Beckham and with Rooney. It's not. It's important players for the national team. So I decided to take them, even if I was not sure they could perform at the best, but if it's great players, you take them. You gamble a little bit, I think. Experience is very important. And I mean, Southgate and England, they did extremely well 2-3 years ago, and I think they will do well this time as well, and maybe even better.
Darius Vassell knows about playing for England and for Eriksson, having played in the World Cup in 2002 and Euro 2004. He told us about being selected and how chuffed he is for Aston Villa striker Ollie Watkins.
Yeah, I didn't believe it. I got the phone call. I thought it was a bit of a wind-up. I didn't really believe it was Sven on the phone, but it was. He let me know that I'm getting a call up. I was very proud of that moment. And then, you know, it was a roller coaster ride. I didn't look back. That I got my debut, and I got to go to, as you said, the European Championships and the World Cup. And it's a great experience. I wish I could have done better, and I wish I could have done more. I'd like to think that, you know, the strikers that are in a similar situation, you know, as I was then, they're able to go out and go on better. You know, produce something. Let us get, you know, over the line, get us past that, you know, final hurdle that we so often, you know, tend to fall at. Yeah, really good. I was asked this question a few months back, and I felt like it was going to be a toss-up between him and Calvert-Lewin. I felt like they both had really good seasons. They caused the same sort of problems when they play. Really good players in good form. And to see them both there, I think it's fully deserved. I'm very proud of Ollie, and I hope that he can go, you know, one better than his England debut goal and go and do something really good in the England shirt. So I'm really proud of that.
Former Arsenal winger and one of England's most capped players, Rachel Yankee, is pleased that Arsenal's Bukayo Saka is in the squad, but is concerned he might not make the final 26. She also told us she appreciates the dilemma facing Gareth Southgate when it comes to the right-back position.
I do worry, like Danny said, that he may not get the nod because I think England have so many talented players, that can do exactly the same job. I think his need for Arsenal is a lot higher than it is for England at the moment. But I hope he goes. Fingers are crossed. But there is that element of doubt there in my mind. That right back position is it is so difficult. I suppose it just goes down to the style of play and each game. How does the team want to play? And I mean, yeah, you can look at so many of the players. I mean, Reece James, obviously, people have been talking about. Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier, and Trent. I mean, he's quality anyway. But I suppose when you look at all of them and the qualities they bring, maybe you put the others ahead of Trent. But he's a fantastic player. I think it's an extremely difficult job to pick them and yeah, maybe Gareth Southgate's looking at it in a whole different way, and maybe he keeps them all in because he wants to have versatility.
At the other end of the pitch, Harry Kane will lead the line for England in the tournament. He's been backed up in the provisional squad by Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Ollie Watkins. Former England striker Alan Smith doesn't want Kane's future hanging over him going into the Euros.
Oh, it would help, Tom, no doubt about it. You don't want that hanging over. You don't want to have to be speaking to your agent, in his case, his brother, every other day on the phone to talk about who he's been speaking to, which clubs have got in contact. As single-minded as Harry Kane is, and he is one of the most single-minded footballers I think I've ever seen, I think that can't fail to be a distraction, not knowing where you're going to report for pre-season in just a few weeks' time. So in an ideal world, that would be sorted. As to whether it is or not is a moot point, because I think there's a lot of negotiating to do before if he signs for another club. So you just hope that it doesn't take away from his game, because as we all know, he's a key factor in England doing well.
Well, if England are to do well, they're going to have to get out of the group stage, and these are their fixtures at that point. So June the 13th, it all kicks off. It's not far away, is it? All three of England's group games are at Wembley. So Croatia at 2 p.m. on June the 13th. 5 days later, what a fixture that is. England against Scotland at Wembley. That will be fierce, as it always is in the final game of the group stage, but hopefully not the final game for England or Scotland, is June the 22nd, Czech Republic at 8 p.m. Before these games, by the way, there are two warm-up matches. Wednesday, the 2nd of June, England play Austria, and a few days later, 4 days later to be precise, on Sunday, the 6th of June at 5 p.m, England play Romania. So two warm-up games ahead of those three fixtures in the group stages. And just to recap, it's a 33-man squad that Gareth Southgate has picked. But before those games, he needs to get that down to 26. 4 players who have never been capped by England are in the squad. Sam Johnstone, who has once been in the squad, but not on the pitch. He's in there with Aaron Ramsdale as 2 of the 4 goalkeepers. Ben Godfrey, the Everton versatile defender, he is in the 33-man squad. And so is Brighton's Ben White. He's one of quite a few centre-backs in there as well. But the key talking point is those 4 centre-backs. Our guest this morning said that all 4 of them might well go to the Euros, and Gareth Southgate has suggested that they are all so versatile that that could well be the case as well. Much more reaction to this squad coming up. There'll be more from the England manager, Gareth Southgate, as the nation asks that question, is it coming home? Southgate and the players certainly hope so.